Good evening. Thank you all for coming to the town hall meeting to learn more about the candidates running for city council. First, I would like to thank the city council candidates for coming tonight. There will be opportunities for you to submit questions throughout the evening. And I would also like to thank Meridian Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for coming and volunteering their time. So thank you, Mayak. And finally, I would like to thank the moderator, Mark Johnson, who is a KTVB news anchor. So,
thank you. I appreciate that, Arlie. She just told me that she's going to go to either Princeton or Georgetown, and I think we just found out why. I think she's on her way. Well, I appreciate you having me here for this important election and this important election season, not only around our state, but right here in the city of Meridian. I'd like to introduce the candidates that are vying for the 3 seats here. One of them has already been wrapped up, apparently unchallenged, but in seat 4, vying for Council President Keith Bird's seat. The legendary Keith Bird retiring, as you know, after 20 years. His name will be legendary for a long time in this town. First of all, vying, small businessman, former president of the Meridian Parks and Rec. He is the commissioner of the Meridian Planning and Zoning. He is Treg Burnt. Local loan processor, also former Russ Fulcher Chief of Staff. He is Dom Gelsomino. Sales and Marketing Director of McCarter Morehouse Real Estate, BYU and Meridian High School graduate. He's back at his alma mater, Jordan Morehouse. And also former bar and restaurant owner, chef, one of my favorite places that isn't there anymore in its old state, Rick's Press Room, personal friend of Guy Fieri, Rick Valenzuela. As I mentioned, there are no challengers for seat 2. The incumbent, Joe Borton, his campaign co-chairs Tammy DeVeard, and Senator Chuck Winder is also here, and he will have a chance to speak as well. The candidates for the seat 6, there are 3 of them. First of all, 2 decades of military service, retired as a major, flew the supersonic F-15s, now in real estate here in Meridian, owner of Crosswinds Realty, Josh Cummings. Also, the incumbent, the Director of Government Affairs for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, served as community liaison for the city of Meridian. He is Luke Kavanagh. And finally, for the seat 6, he is the owner of DMG Real Estate Partners, David McKinney. So if we can have the candidates for the seat 4 take your place on stage, we'll begin tonight's forum. And as you're making your way to the stage, a little bit of ground rules here. You will all have an opportunity to answer the first question, and there will be the first question I will present to you will be a broad question, wide-ranging. You will see the guys running the timers down here. You will get a 1 minute, then you'll get a 30-second, and then you will get a time, and then I will come over and grab you by the collar and pull you through the curtain after that. So ground rules are set, and we will begin. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight. That shows how important the city of Meridian is to you as well. All right, we'll begin with you, Mr. Burnt, first of all. And again, I'll say the question once, and you can ask me to repeat it, but I think you'll understand. According to the Meridian Chamber of Commerce, Meridian is the 10th fastest growing city in America. As you all know, the online site 24/7 Wall Street listed the city as the #1 place to live in America based on crime numbers, employment, education, housing, and recreation. But as you all know, with that comes incredible growing pains, with the city's growth rate averaging 4 times the national average for similar-sized cities. City Hall must now more than ever wrestle with issues that involve growth, urban sprawl, traffic congestion, overcrowded schools, an uptick in crime, the budget, infrastructure reconfiguration, and many other issues. There has never been a more important time in the city's history for the leaders of Meridian to make correct decisions on all of those issues, and I believe I speak for the citizens. How do you intend to help guide the direction the city will go to advance and protect what has already been established? Mr. Burnt, you can begin.
Thank you. First off, before I start, I want to thank MIAC for hosting this event. Thank you, Harley, your team. I'm truly honored to be here. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see so many people here supporting us this evening. Growth is a big deal. There's no doubt about it. In my opinion, it's probably not going away anytime soon. Some of my history is I'm currently the planning and zoning commissioner for the City of Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission. And I feel like these issues are very important. I know firsthand how to deal with these issues. Development is growing. We see applications on a monthly basis. Neighborhoods the strength lies in our neighborhoods. And honestly, the experience that I've had as a commissioner in the Planning and Zoning Commission has helped me prepare for this moment and to direct the growth where we need to go successfully.
Dom.
Thanks, Mark. My name is Dom Gelsomino. My vision and guidance for the city of Meridian as it continues to grow. And first of all, I'd like to reciprocate what Greg has said, thank Meridian High School for hosting us. My experience is my connection with the state legislature. I have made professional relationships with the state legislature, with our governor, with members who affect, with members who affect our state policy. I have a vision that was endorsed by Senator Russ Fulcher, who's currently running for Congress. I'm connected with business leaders in the city, in the state. My vision is to bring all those connections, all those professional relationships to work together to manage responsibly the growth of our city in a manner in which is fiscally responsible, fiscally conservative, and a way that protects and continues to preserve our community's identity.
So I was born in Boise and grew up in Meridian starting at age 6, and so I've seen a lot of the growth that has taken place. I graduated from this very high school and spent some time out of the state going to school and whatnot, and then I decided with my wife to move back here to raise our family. And I feel like that is the value that Mark was addressing, is what brings people to Meridian. I think it's the family values that we have here in Meridian, and it's important to protect those values as we continue to grow, because if you don't protect what people are arriving coming to Meridian for, then they're gonna lose that growth. And so I think it's important that we protect the family values, make sure that our city remains safe, and as far as accomplishing that, you need to make sure that we work with first responders, make sure they have the appropriate budgeting. We have to work with our developers and those that are building the community and making sure that they're bringing appropriate developments to City Council for approval. And as you do that, I think people will continue to enjoy our community and the growth will be sustainable.
Hi, my name is Rick Valenzuela. Thanks again for everyone coming out tonight. As I look at the growth of Meridian, I think there are two key aspects that we have to examine. One being the growth in our outlying areas. Outside of our subdivisions, there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of things going on the major streets, Linder, Chinden, Meridian. Those need to be addressed. Also, there's another need for growth, a different type of growth. In that corridor from Linder to Locust Grove on Pine, I think is a valuable opportunity for us to define what Meridian is and should be. That's our old town. If we begin to build from that core out, I think only great things will happen. I thank you for your support.
We've got a number of questions that have been submitted from those of you here as well as folks online, but I'd like to start with those of you that have made the commitment to come tonight. And we'll start in opposite order here. We'll start with Rick and work our way this way. And the question is, will you continue, if elected, to say yes to virtually every development request, or more carefully consider how close those developments are to schools and infrastructure?
Well, this is a question that's very near and dear to me. I have a concern with the proliferation of convenience stores, gas stations, storage units, and so-called fast food restaurants. I think there are too many. It is not what I moved here for. I moved here for a quality of life for my family. I moved here to enjoy the beauty that Idaho is, the natural beauty, the community beauty of Meridian, and I want to preserve that. So in answer to your question, no. I will not continue to just vote yes on everything. If Mayor Tammy could probably vouch for me that I'm often very stubborn. I want to be that squeaky wheel if it means that Meridian can be as successful as I know it can be. Thank you.
I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's important for Meridian to keep family values to make sure that we have sustainable growth. And I think one of the biggest complaints for a lot of residents in Meridian is the infrastructure, in the traffic and the concerns that are there. One of the things that I also believe in, though, is that without the developers and the private sector, that the growth that we have seen in Meridian wouldn't be possible. And so I believe in working closely with those developers to make sure that the developments that they're bringing and proposing to the city council can meet the demands that we have. And I think it's important to work with the private sector closely to accomplish that and make Meridian a great place for everyone and provide services for all types of people.
I'd like to start with the simple fact that as an elected official, which is sometimes often forgotten, is that I am, or we are, beholden to you, the people. You are our employers, we are the employees. What you say is the top priority and will be the top priority if I'm elected in November. I will listen to your input first, and we will work together as a community with City Hall towards free market solutions to make sure that our city is growing and continuing to be successful and make progress as the second fastest growing city in the state for the reasons that we all know, and that is because we can work together towards that strong, successful Meridian that we are already.
Thank you for that question. As a current P&Z commissioner, I can't tell you how much we appreciate as a commission your input as citizens. It's so vitally important that you show up to these city council meetings, to P&Z meetings, to offer your support in regard to these very important issues that we face that we have faced, that we currently face, and that we'll continue to have in our communities. I want you to know that I actually have a record being a P&Z member, and you can be rest assured that I have not voted yes on every development that's came in front of us. It's important to ask the right questions. There are hundreds of questions and many things to look at, minimum requirements, and you can be rest assured that going forward, even as your city council, as a city councilman, I will continue to ask these questions that have helped me be intimately involved with the decision-making processes, with development applications that have came before city council, and also planning and zoning. Thank you.
I really appreciate whoever submitted this question, because I think this is key in any race, especially with a seat where the incumbent is leaving and there will be a new person in that seat. And the question is, what qualifications / experience do you believe you have to become Meridian's next city councilor? We'll start this way and go down.
Well, I've been truly blessed to have the endorsement of Councilman Byrd. I've known him for many years. I worked with him hand in hand. He's personally endorsed me for this for this seat, along with the mayor and most of city council. And so what makes me qualified for this position is my experience that I've had with the city for the past decade. I am a past president and commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm a past commissioner of the Impact Fees Commission, which dictate, funds that go to fire and police, and also the parks. And currently, as I've said prior to that, I'm currently commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this experience is invaluable. We do not need, at the crossroads of what we're facing right now with growth and traffic, on-the-job training. We need leadership that knows. We need people who have made decisions, and we need people who are intimately involved with the city government. And I believe, and it's my opinion, that I am that person. Thank you.
The experience and vision that I bring, as I mentioned before, was endorsed by one of our state's leaders, one of Meridian's leaders, former State Senator Russ Fulcher. And the experience that I bring is the professional relationships of having served as Chief of Staff in the legislature for several representatives and legislators. I have professional relationships with lawmakers and with the gubernatorial candidates to whoever may be our next governor. I know that as your city councilman, I can work together with them, with business leaders who I have been endorsed by throughout the city of Meridian. My experience in the mortgage and housing industry will provide me the knowledge and tools that we need to improve and strengthen our mortgage and housing industry, as well as every other industry that we need to focus on, as well as infrastructure. Just because I have not held public office just means that I will be on-the-job training.
As I mentioned, I grew up here in Meridian. All of my immediate family lives in Meridian. Most of my extended family lives in Meridian. I've seen what has happened here in the city, and I've seen what our city has been. I've seen what our city is becoming, and I believe that the vision of making sure and protecting where we came from is important. My experience in the professional world, my experience in serving others, and my experience with my church and the leadership callings that I've had there, I think qualify me for this position. It's not necessarily what I've accomplished in the city thus far. It's how well can you work with people to make important decisions? How well can you receive input from the citizens when they come to those meetings and they have issues and address them with you? That's important. I feel like I'm a clear, effective communicator. I feel like I can listen to people and I can understand their concerns and relate with them. And I feel like that's what qualifies me, is the ability to work with you.
Hi, as Mark said, my family and I operated Rick's Press Room Grill and Bar in downtown Meridian for 10 years. That is 70 in dog years. We built our business on 3 key facets: quality, value, and consistency. That's how we maintained our business. That's how we grew our business. That's how we grew our reputation. Those are the same 3 qualities I bring to the city council. Quality, quality of my integrity, quality of who I am. Consistency. I will be consistent in the message that I deliver. Those are the things that I want to make sure that everyone here knows. We built our business on those three things: quality, value, consistency. The same things that you'll be spending your hard-earned tax dollars on to support me as City Council. Thank you.
I'm going to consolidate some of these questions because obviously we've got some overlapping, and so I'll consolidate the questions that we're getting a number of questions about. And the first one is about overcrowded schools, which, as you all know, has been an issue not only here in Meridian but in school districts all over this region. The questions range from: do you have any solutions to the overcrowding schools? How much of a concern will it be for you if elected?
Before I came here tonight, I took a moment to Google some information and some data on the district schools here. And I have to say I was startled. According to U.S. News, less than 50% of our children in the district are proficient in math and English. Less than 20% of those are ready for college. Okay, that's a direct result of overcrowding and underfunding. We need to do things to make sure that our children make Meridian the best it can be, that we keep our children here, that they don't leave out of state, that they see the value in being a resident of this community and the opportunity to make it the best one that it can be.
With the growth that we've seen within the last couple decades, obviously this has been a huge issue in the West Ada School District, formerly the Meridian School District, has had a tremendous task of trying to achieve and solve these problems. And you know, we continue to build high schools and we continue to build elementary schools and stuff like that, and the growth just continues to come. And so it's hard to you know, figure out how did you solve this overnight? And obviously it's a huge issue that many departments, many agencies are working on. And yeah, I think it's important to make sure that we have classrooms and school systems where kids can succeed. Obviously education is very important. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to argue about that. Education is very important for our community, and it's important to keep the kids here that graduate from our schools and try to get them local colleges, local jobs, and those type of things, because a lot of my generation that I went to high school with, they graduated college and they're not here. And so in order to keep a sustainable city, we need to make sure that people have success here in Meridian, whether it be education in the high school system and on.
I graduated Boise State University in 2013, and I know what it's like to be in a packed classroom, even from middle school, high school, and college. Education is an enormous priority, and that is where I feel my working relationship with the state legislature, who has the higher authority over state education, funding, classroom, and education reform, as well as the superintendent of public instruction, comes into play. I know I can walk into their offices, sit down with them, and plan with school leadership, district leaders, on the right solutions on how to fix things. They are right. We need to keep our kids here after they graduate. One of my other plans is to work with the legislature to lower our business tax rate in Idaho, because we are losing a lot of students who graduate in entrepreneurial degrees and business degrees who leave the state because the tax rate is not competitive compared to Washington, Utah, and Oregon. We need to work to keep our students and graduates here.
Thank you for that question. I have a vested interest in this issue. I have a son who goes to Lewis and Clark Middle School, and he, and so his education in the Meridian School, in the West Ada School District, is vital for his success, his future success. It's important to make sure our children are getting an excellent education, all right, from K to 12. It's important that when they go to college that they're ready, that when they get to college they're successful, because ultimately what's most important is that they come back to Meridian to fill high-paying jobs, which then will help out our economic development. it's important that those that are on the city council continue to be strong supporters of West Ada School District. We're hand in hand, and we need to continue to be so. We have a vested interest in the children in our community, and as your city councilman, I will continue that effort in strengthening our relationship with the West Ada School District. Thank you.
So many of the questions tonight are obviously about growth. Some are about the prospects of continued growth, and some are about hoping that it will start to slow down. Given the continued prospect of growth, what are your top priorities along those lines to ensure that Meridian remains a strong community? And specifically, where is your baseline? What do you go to? What do you draw from? Where is your platform when you do have applications and prospects and proposals from developers who come to town and say, in front of City Hall, here's what I'm looking to do? Where do you go and what will you do?
Well, that's a great question. My top three priorities, number one is realistic collaborative traffic planning. As a planning and zoning commissioner member, I've dedicated myself to ensuring traffic plans match infrastructure needs. This is crucial for our growth. Number two is quality development. When developments are proposed to the city, there are hundreds of things that we look at, many things that we need to talk about. And we need straightforward answers from these developers, from these builders. I want you to know that I'm looking out for you. I have looked out for you as a current planning and zoning commissioner. Our neighborhoods and our cities are stronger when we work together as a community. And number three, a revitalized downtown Meridian. I believe that the heartbeat of the city of Meridian is the downtown corridor. Our downtown corridor has so much potential, so much room for growth. As I talk to business leaders and businessmen that own properties downtown Meridian, they all say the same thing: Treg, help us. Let's talk about planning and future development with folks that have the money and the resources to come and change the downtown corridor into something that we can be proud of. So these are the three things that I will make my top three priorities for growth. Thank you.
Growth is both an opportunity for continued success, but it also is a cautionary thought for many citizens. I, for the last few months, have knocked doors and I have met with over 3,000 of your friends and neighbors, boots on the ground. And the number one priority is, how do we maintain our identity as we continue to grow? My top three priorities are going to be maintaining a successful and prosperous economy, working together with business leaders, housing and mortgage industry leaders, as well as leaders throughout the city and the state. We need to make sure that our growth is handled in a free market way, that we don't pick winners and losers as a city council and as a government. That is only a recipe for disaster. The way forward is by allowing ourselves to provide the environment that is conducive to job growth and success and prosperity for the city of Meridian, and allowing that business leaders do their job, our community works together for a stronger, more prosperous Meridian than it already is.
Being a real estate professional, I hear all the time, I ask the question, where are you coming from? And a lot of times I hear from out of state. They're moving here because they're tired of where they were previously living, whether it be politically or just frustrated with raising their family there, or whatever it may be. And we have this tremendous growth because we do protect the family values that help build this city. And I think it's important that we remember and protect that, because if you don't protect, I repeat, if you don't protect why people are coming here, then we're going to dry up. And I think it's important that, like I said, we work with these developers because they're the ones that are helping us with the growth. In the Ada County, we have a 2-month supply or less housing inventory. So if we don't continue to build, the people that want to come here, they won't be able to. There just won't be enough houses for the people that want to come here and enjoy their family life here. And so if you don't work closely with the private industry and the developers and find sustainable opportunities, then you're going to prevent other people of having the freedom to come in and join us and protect those family values.
First of all, I'd just like to say that I'm not a politician. I'm a business owner. I own 2 commercial properties in downtown Meridian. I live in the Paramount subdivision. And so I see growth in 2 ways. I see the growth that needs to happen in the core, the Old Town Meridian. It needs to be entrepreneurial fed. We need to have things that make us unique. Living in the Paramount subdivision, I have concerns about the developments that are out there. Do I want a Winco in my backyard? I would ask all of you to ask the simple question, do we need 3 Carl's Jr.'s in our city? Do we need 7 McDonald's or however many there are? Do we need 3 Walmarts? At some point, I think that allure is valuable to us. The allure that this is a great community. The allure that I want to live in that great community. I want to be part of that. But you don't get there by building big box stores and sending most of that money out of state. Thank you.
Up until this moment, we've been talking in broad brushstrokes, philosophy, and platforms. Now we're going to get a little bit in the weeds and talk some specifics. Do you support a city ordinance making it illegal to discriminate for housing or other services based on sexual orientation or identity? Why or why not?
I stand against discrimination in all forms. My cultural background, I've experienced it. My father is from a little island you may now know, Guam. He served 25 years in the United States Navy. My mother and her family immigrated from Mexico in the 20s. I've seen discrimination firsthand. I've felt it. I believe in the Bible, and I believe that we are all created equal. And I will not stand for discrimination in any form. Thank you.
I think this is pretty simple. No, the answer is no. You don't discriminate. There shouldn't be discrimination for any reason. I think all of us are going to echo this very similar. The biggest thing is protect people's freedoms, right? That's the Constitution of the United States of America. We have those freedoms, and we need to protect those freedoms. So no, discriminating on housing, discriminating for anything is immoral. Now, I recently had a discussion about this. Do we protect hate speech and those type of things? And, because of our Constitution, it protects those things, but when it comes to action, then that's when you draw the line. Discriminating and hateful actions and those type of things are despicable and never accepted, and hate speech is despicable as well. And I will never be for any of those things, but we have to remember that freedom is on both sides, but for discrimination of those individuals, it is completely wrong.
I'd like to continue to emphasize the voices that you hear from my colleagues on the table. No, there is no place in a city as great as Meridian, in a country as great as the United States, where my family built their lives here. My father immigrated from Sicily in the 1990s. My mother and I were born in the United States. I achieved their American dream by being the first in my family to graduate from a 4-year university in America and running for public office. There is no place in our world for discrimination. We need to work together as a man of faith and as a community of faith and a world of faith. There is no teaching that allows for discrimination, none. And there is no room in my heart or in my mind or in Meridian City Council for hate.
I echo everything that's been said up until now. I'm 100% against discrimination in all forms. It doesn't matter. Religious, we also need to protect the people's freedoms as well. And that includes religious freedoms. That includes gender, includes race and socioeconomic, what socioeconomic class that you may find yourself in. Everyone needs protection. We are a community of equality. We are a community of love. We are a community of respect. And if I'm lucky enough to be elected as your next city councilman in seat 4, I will continue with these values. Recently, they did a city survey, and the city survey came back that most people in Meridian feel like, as it is right now, that we live in a pretty generous community, a community that shows love and respect to each other, and that's something I'm proud of.
As most of you know, City Hall constantly labors over issues involving annexation and property lines and city limits. This is a specific question involving annexation. My home is in Ada County and has not been annexed into the Meridian city limits. I've been using city water and sewer for years. I'm surrounded by properties that were annexed in the city limits, making my property an enclave. Should I be required to annex, or should my neighbors who have been paying Meridian city taxes for years be allowed to secede from the city? Annexation issues.
My personal belief, I don't believe that it would be very difficult for one that is a current citizen and property owner in the city of Meridian to secede. I just don't think that's possible. I wouldn't support that. However, I stated earlier that it's important that we listen to the concerns of the citizens of Meridian. If there is a citizen that is wanting to be annexed into the city, then we need to have that discussion, and we need to sit down and discuss how and if that's possible and how we can get it done. That's one of the beautiful things about, it's one of the reasons why I'm excited to be on city councils, to have these energetic discussions with the citizens of Meridian. And if there is someone out there who wants to be a part of Meridian and wants to be an official citizen of Meridian, then I'm very much in favor of having that discussion with them.
Listening to your constituents, listening to your neighbors, your families and friends is vital to the success of our community. And as I've been going door to door and meeting with your neighbors and friends, I have been listening very carefully. And many of them would like to know more. And that is what my campaign is about. It's a young, vibrant campaign that wants to inject an enormous amount of energy and excitement into the city of Meridian, its citizens, and to be more informed about what is going on throughout our city. Annexation, cities are very limited in their abilities to annex land. I'm very much in favor of property rights, and much like Mr. Burnt has mentioned, it is a discussion that needs to be had with the people that are involved and the leaders that are involved with regards to the annexation of land and property rights. Property rights are incredibly important. It's who we are as Americans and American citizens.
Yeah, I think it's important that we understand that since the founding of our country, property rights and the protection of those have been vital. And I think it's important that we remember that that property owner, should have the freedom to do as he chooses. Now, understanding that, we do have those concerns, and my understanding is you can annex your property, but the utilities and those type of things might not be available at the time. But if somebody wants to privately pay for utilities to come out to their property and annex into the city, I don't understand why we block that freedom from them choosing that. Now, and I think it's important that if somebody is using city utilities in a currently annexed area, I think if they really want to leave the city, then I think there should be proper steps to possibly do so, but that would probably mean discontinuing the city services that they're using. And so, like I said, I believe in the freedom of those property owners. And if they are wanting to come to our city and we can, I think we annex them and we figure out how we can bring utilities to them as soon as we possibly can, but it has to be economically viable.
At the core of this question is property owners' rights. As I said, I own 2 commercial properties and a residential property. I want to have the opportunity and the ability to do what's right for my family, to do what's right by my neighbors as well. And it's a very fine line. We want development. We want the city to grow. But we also want to keep that hometown feel. I think that there needs to be an easier path for those who want their property or desire their property be annexed into the city to have that happen. It's somewhat of a convoluted system right now, and I think we can make that easier. I think it can benefit us as a group, as a community, having that annexation happen. But I am very, very sensitive to the rights of property owners and the value that their land and their hard work means to them.
Ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for the seat 4 of the Meridian City Council. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Thank you. As I mentioned, Joe Borton is an incumbent and is unopposed. He is a local attorney at Borton Lakey. And Joe will have an opportunity to come up and represent. So apparently you have some pretty good campaign managers. Yeah, have a seat. We'll give you a chance to answer the same broad stroke opening question that they did, with Meridian being the 10th fastest growing city and the #1 place in America to live. The growing pains, however, with urban sprawl, traffic congestion, overcrowded schools, uptick in crime, you obviously are coming back into that, but as I mentioned, probably a more urgent time now than when you were first elected 4 years ago.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to MIAC and the Meridian High School for hosting this. That's a great question, and it's not one that's really unique for this council race. I think those challenges and problems existed 4 years ago, and we wrestled with those. And 4 years before that, Meridian's been growing by leaps and bounds for some time, and what Meridian has been blessed with and needs to continue is some really sound leadership. A lot of people in the room know people who had served previously. Charlie Roundtree, Mr. Zaremba here, who's with us, Keith Bird, of course, one of our legends. And what they did is lay a groundwork that we can all learn from, and I will try to continue. And with that great growth is proper planning. It's long-term planning, understanding that when you're going to provide services that include exceptional open space and public parks, you're going to have the greatest law enforcement in the state, the fastest response times with fire, and the most up-to-date public infrastructure around, that you're going to be really popular. And you do that in a community with no debt, that's accessible, that's open, you're going to have huge demand. So we've got to be mindful of the groundwork that's been laid before us and continue it. I'm going to go a little over time real quick. One of the things, if you know me, whether it's a strength or maybe it's a drawback, but I am a municipal government nerd. I love the details and the weeds, so when you've got weedy questions, I like them. So it's hard to answer questions like this really fast. I've got much longer answers, so I'm going to try and stick around. If you want to talk more afterwards, we can do so. And I'm accessible at City Hall. I've got a downtown business, so I'd love to visit longer because I like the details. I think it's really important. It's what I love about municipal government.
Perfect. Very nice. Along those lines, as an incumbent, you've been wrestling with this for a while, and I've got a number of questions concerning safety among citizens and among children, the children here. One person says he believes our police and fire departments are second to none, but with the growth outpacing budgets, how are you going to balance that? Also along safety lines, school resource officers shown to be highly effective in reducing youth crimes and increasing school safety, but Meridian has chosen to cut one SRO position and increase what it charges the school district. Do you support or oppose this, and what will you do to improve safety for our kids? And specifically, this one says, how will you increase safety measures for citizens and children?
That's a lot. But that's a great question. And I think the question, wherever it came from, and we've got individuals here from the school district, and our city and the school district has had a great partnership. That's a loaded question because there's lots of considerations that go into trying to balance the role of the city and what we play in proper community development and how neighborhoods are designed and how they integrate with commercial and industrial, and blending that with the concerns of the school district. They definitely overlap. And our school board and school superintendent in West Ada and our city leadership have a wonderful relationship, but we can always do better. And one of the things we can do better is ensure that open line of dialogue and forward planning continues. I think we can always do a better job of that. One example that comes up oftentimes before the city council is safe routes to schools. And you will have, as we grow north, south, east, and west, we'll find at times an application for a new residential community that has some disconnect in sidewalks, right? So now we're faced with challenges in how to ensure perhaps some private property rights and a sound development that makes great sense, that fits with our comprehensive plan. Our infrastructure and public safety has all anticipated it, but we've got some disconnect, and we've got some challenges in safe routes to schools. Those are difficult situations that we try and balance, and on a case-by-case basis, in partnership with the school district, try and make sure that's addressed. Whether it's a bus route or an ability to have off-site improvements for sidewalks. Another thing that our community's been blessed with is a development community that is extremely proactive and forward-thinking in that, and they share in that partnership. So oftentimes we're able to solve that problem by creating off-site improvements that assist safe routes to schools. So there's lots that we can do, but one of the things, again, that we can always do and do better is that communication, that partnership. Along those lines, as we go through what we're going to do now in the next 2-3 years, is we're updating our comprehensive plan for the city of Meridian. A lot of stakeholders, including everyone in this room, hopefully, has an opportunity to give input. And one of the big players in that is our school district. So as we talk about how north-south is going to grow and east and west, we need to work well with them and their school siting plan and long-term. Not 2 years or 4 years, not when any of us are serving even necessarily, but let's continue to look 20 years, 30 years down the road. We have an amazing city because of some wonderful leaders in the 70s and the 80s and 90s when Meridian was 10,000 people. I've been here 20 years, got a business and property in downtown Meridian. My wife works here, my kids went to school here, and we have been blessed because those leaders before us made great decisions long term. Those are hard to do. In the short term, it's easy to try and make decisions that have immediate return and immediate effect. The difficult but the most prudent and important decisions are the long-term ones. That's what excites me about local government. It's what I've enjoyed most about the last 4 years. We're nowhere near being done, obviously. In the next 4 years, there's so many exciting things that are going to help answer that question as well.
Well, as you heard with the first candidates, planning and zoning is a huge deal here. And this citizen is concerned about it. This citizen says planning and zoning and community development received a very poor rating. Why do you believe this is happening, and what will you do to turn that around?
So that's a great question. Where's Treg? I could give a dig on planning and zoning. Where'd he go? There he is. But I won't. But here's why that's such a good question. I have 3 principles that are really important to me, and it has nothing to do with city council other than it impacts how I do what I do. But they impact and they control my beliefs with my family and my faith and my business and my role with city council. There's 3 things that are critical. It's honesty, empathy, and humility. Those things are the core tenets for me. And one of those ties into this question right here. And it's empathy and humility. With regards to humility, when you hear a question like that, oftentimes as a local government you might bow your neck and wonder who's complaining and we must do it right. And it doesn't make sense why you'd be upset at or why someone would rate community development or planning and zoning not as high as you might think. And with a sense of humility, what you do is you embrace those questions and those concerns, and you always look to do something better. We sit up here, and as a running for re-election, oftentimes we can talk about all the great things we've done and the great things the city's accomplished, but that does not at any time take away the opportunity to do things better. The city council can do things better, the mayor can do things better, our planning and zoning commission, our community development, we can do things better, no question. And if you're ever offended when somebody questions how you do things and is upset that you don't do things well enough, I think you got to take a step back. And I'm using up all 4 people's time. Okay. So this goes back to I just get passionate about the city. I'll stop my answer. I'll answer later longer.
Campaign manager just spoke.
Well, thank you.
All right, you've got an entertainment and recreation question. And this will be your final question. You like going in the weeds? Well, this one goes into the fairways and the greens. Do you believe the Lakeview Golf Course, which is an asset to Meridian, should be protected? Obviously, there's a lot of developers that are looking at that with glazed eyes and licking their chops. Explain your views. And do you think enforcing the no aerial fireworks in the city is justified?
Yes. I'm going to try and keep it short. So Lakeview Golf Course, if you don't know, is a tremendous asset for the city and the whole community out there on Blackett and Cherry Lane. It is city-owned. It's privately run with a long-term contract, which is going to continue, and the city can do and should do everything it can to support them to be successful and to encourage the community to enjoy that asset. So I don't see any change in that in the immediate future. I haven't heard of any change in the immediate future. With regards to, I believe it was the ban on aerial fireworks, that's critical. It's absolutely important. It's unfortunate, but one of the things that is important is our public safety. And our first responders and our fire department talk to us directly about the challenges that aerial fireworks pose, the loopholes that our communities had to deal with purchasing fireworks and signing that you're going to light them off out of state, and all of you in the room have probably seen what looks like a battle zone around our community on the 4th of July. So it's a necessary trade-off to eliminate those within city limits, and it benefits our public safety for all of our citizens.
Ladies and gentlemen, the incumbent for seat 2, Meridian City Council, Joe Borden. All right, the seat 6 candidates, if you would make your way to the stage. And again, Josh Cummings, the incumbent, Luke Kavanagh, and David McKinney. I want to apologize. You are horrible on social media. You're not there. So when I was doing my research today, Meridian's David McKinney came up as the owner of DMG Real Estate Partners. You are not that David McKinney. I apologize.
I am not.
I'm glad we're not on live television right now because I feel like fake news.
Actually, you are live out there.
Uh,
I have friends who are watching
okay, so
online.
tell us who you are, David. Tell me who you are.
I'm an attorney. I'm an intellectual property attorney. I run my own practice in Meridian.
Okay.
I'll tell more in part of my answer.
You should think about getting a Facebook site, but I appreciate that. Okay, thanks, David. It's ironic, though, that you're the same age as the other David McKinney with the Costco thing and the whole deal. It was going so smoothly, too. It was going great. That's what happens when there's no teleprompter from this idiot. All right. We will start with you, Luke, and the same opening question that I gave the first two groups and group about how will you help guide the direction that the city will go right now, from now forward, and protect what's already been established.
Thanks, Mark. Before we jump in, I want to share something that I think is really important, and I want to thank all the candidates that are here and the family members of the candidates that are here. There's a dirty little secret about running for office. That's hard, and it stinks, and it's late nights, and it's early mornings, and it's stressful. And I'm fortunate, I know many of us that are here are fortunate enough to have my partners, or our partners here. I have a beautiful wife that's in the back that has brought the boy that has been annoying everyone all tonight. He is my little pork chop, my little Lincoln. And I'm so thankful that many of the partners of the candidates that are here are ranked. So I'll jump in. Growth is, we've heard it tonight, you're going to hear a lot of talk about growth. Here's the most important thing, is we're a municipality that eclipses 100,000 people. We've got to have people that have been experienced in serving our community top to bottom, not just during election season, but long before and long afterwards. Secondary to that, it's about collaboration. It's not just about what happens in Meridian that deals with city government, it's about the partners that are connected, those that provide our streets and roads, those that educate our kids. We have to collaborate better, and we have to engage them differently than we have in the past.
Good job. All right, I'd like to echo everyone's sentiments and thank everyone, especially the voters that came out tonight to be more informed voters come November. As far as my background, to address the question of Meridian, we all know Meridian is a fantastic place, and I love Meridian, and that's really what's motivated me to get involved in public service. And I think there are two key things that you need to understand about me. First, the things that I bring to the table, primarily from my military background, are definable leadership traits. You know, first and foremost, taken straight from the Air Force motto, integrity first, excellence in all we do, and service before self. And those have really been embraced in my heart. Second, problem-solving skills. As a realtor, I've worked with a lot of difficult cases to solve problems when it comes to home financing or finding affordable solutions. And I think the out-of-the-box thinking that I can bring to the Meridian City Council is really my greatest strength as a non-professional politician.
Let me add to what was mentioned earlier. I'm not just an attorney. I am a civil engineer also, and I served for almost 6 years on a planning and zoning commission in another city very similar to Meridian, a city of about 100,000 people that was experiencing explosive growth. I believe I have the background that is tailor-made for a city council position. I understand development. I understand infrastructure. I understand the law. I understand all of the basic principles that go into city government and good planning for a city that's growing very rapidly. That is the biggest issue in Meridian. That's what we've been talking about here tonight primarily, and that's the issue that I believe I'm in a perfect position to address. We don't want our city to become an endless sea of suburbia punctuated by an archipelago of strip malls. We'll end up with a city that is really great now, and lots of people are moving to it, and in 20 years, people are looking around and saying, gee, this is like California, and they leave. We don't want that. That's what I want to help protect.
Well, that's a perfect segue into the specific question that one citizen has and says, what specifically do you have in mind to revitalize downtown and make it the social hub of our growing city in much the same way Boise has?
One of the most important things that cities have been doing recently is trying to create walkable communities. This is something that I dealt with as a planning and zoning commissioner, and was one of the most effective things that we did to make a community more livable, is to design amenities and design the infrastructure, the streets, the sidewalks, and the zoning and so on, to promote the kind of development that is people-friendly rather than demanding automobiles all the time. That's the sort of thing that can be done in downtown Meridian. That's what we should do, because we want to make it a place where people enjoy being, where people enjoy walking down the sidewalk and window shopping, or just buying their regular day-to-day shopping items. That's the kind of approach that will make our city more interesting. We can do that through enforcing design and architectural standards, and through making development requirements that encourage developers to apply those characteristics to their proposed developments.
Well, when it comes to downtown Meridian, I think the city has done a great job so far with the Meridian Development Corporation and some of the efforts that have gone into the beautification projects and have a tangible result. People do enjoy going down there, and we see that reflected in the businesses that are opening. Unfortunately, they don't always stay open, and that's just simply a matter of a free market. I don't think that the city should necessarily incentivize to the point of taxpayer subsidies necessarily to encourage or artificially inflate that area of town. I think the Meridian Chamber of Commerce is a great tool to encourage folks to open new businesses and revitalize that area. But it's not a bad place now to begin with. And honestly, as you look around the valley, a lot of my clients in Southeast Boise absolutely love Bound Crossing. And it's the same kind of thing. Bound Crossing, downtown Meridian. There are certain pockets that really are critical to the fabric of our society. And I think a commitment to downtown is good, but not on the taxpayer's dollar necessarily.
So in 2007, I went to my very first candidate forum, just like this. It was held at the Meridian Chamber of Commerce. And that same question was asked of the two candidates for mayor. What are we going to do about downtown? The sad fact is we have less businesses in downtown today than we did in 2007. And why is that? Well, the biggest reason is that we as patrons don't visit those businesses that are down there. I can't tell you how many times I'd walk into Blue Sky Bagels and find out I was the only customer for the day. So what's local government's role in that? Well, I think it's important that we identify a thing, an event, or a location that people will travel to. Now, we don't have enough time to dive into this, and so it's important. My phone number is 208-695-4536. If you don't get your questions asked or answered tonight, call me. I want to talk to you, and I'll also talk to you online. But I have a plan for public transit that makes riders of choice travel through downtown. So people who want to be on buses, people who want to travel to and from the workplace, to bring them to downtown. I think it's a great vision, a great idea for our community. I want to talk about it more with you. But a facility like that brings commuters into downtown will have them shopping in our stores, eating in our restaurants, drinking in our bars, and experiencing what is really, really remarkable downtown. I look forward to sharing more about that with you soon.
As you know, along with growth comes more jobs, and sometimes those are not high-paying jobs, but that means the workforce needs to find affordable housing. Along those lines, what is your stance when it comes to increasing affordable housing options in the city of Meridian?
Mark, if it's okay, I'm going to take it one step further. We need more housing options in Meridian. We need Meridian is long moved from being a community that you have to move to because it's the cheap place to live, to we're a community of choice. People every day choose to live in Meridian. Now, some people want big houses with small yards. Some people want big yards with small houses. Some people want to come and try out our community before they move here permanently and live in apartments. I think it's important for city council candidates to have visionary thinking and identify areas throughout our community where people can choose to live where they want. Mark touched on our growing economy, and I'm proud to share with you that we have one of the highest household incomes in the state. That didn't happen by accident. That happened by us creating a sound foundation where companies want to locate here, where people can live and work in the same community. So as city council, we've got to be open to that and create opportunities for developers to build apartments, to build townhouses, to build large houses on large lots, small houses on big lots, and everything in between. So that when your family wants to move here and their kids want to move here, there's a place for them to call home.
Well, being a real estate guy, I've got a vested interest in affordable housing for a lot of my clients. And earlier I mentioned that I don't think taxpayers throughout the city should subsidize necessarily downtown development. However, when it comes to housing, I do think that there are certain obligations that the city holds. And really the biggest issue I see is the availability of high-density housing and the lack thereof in Meridian. Nobody wants to have a huge apartment complex in their backyard, but we have to go back to the comprehensive use plan and identify the areas and make it economically viable for developers to spend the money to build those affordable housing projects. I shouldn't say projects, 'cause I come from South Louisiana, and projects mean something entirely different. But what I'm getting at is that we can encourage developers, but it's not the city's role to step in and, for example, build a subsidized Section 8 housing or anything like that, because that's not really what the city of Meridian wants or needs, in my opinion.
The city can, through its zoning and development ordinances, encourage development in a variety of different ways and in a variety of different places. A city, to be an enjoyable place to live, needs a variety of housing types. And in fact, the demographic shifts that are happening in American society right now, the population is growing older, baby boomers are retiring, there's a greater and greater desire and demand for smaller homes, higher density. The developers are going to automatically build what sells. They're going to build what people want. The city doesn't have to make that happen. The city simply has to allow it to happen in the right way and in the right place. Smart development means recognizing where to put different types of development, and the people will buy them. If you build what the people want, the people will come, and they'll keep coming to Meridian, and it'll continue to be a good place to live. For example, a lot of these carriage homes that are being built with they're very small yards, alleyway driveways. Lots of people like those. There's a growing demand for those. That's going to continue, and we can certainly allow that and other housing types that people want.
All right, from growth now to taxes and the budget. And this citizen writes that City Council recently approved the maximum tax increase as allowed by the state mandate. If elected, how will you address budget constraints, raise more taxes, limit growth, cut excess programs?
The first approach of any public official when it comes to taxes is to control spending. Taxes are a necessary evil. You've got to have them for government to work. But we've got to keep them in control and recognize, see, the trouble is that once taxes increase, they rarely go back down. That's the challenge, is to recognize that taxes, like other government programs, should have a shelf life. They tend, however, to only expand. So the trick is, number one, to recognize that if this tax increase, whether it should be permanent or whether it should just be a temporary measure. Second of all, there are programs that can be cut. That's true in every government. But the reality is Meridian has done a good job of keeping a lid on spending, and that will continue with me on the City Council.
Well, let me start by saying that I am totally in favor of the recent budget and the 3% increase, even though it directly impacts my bottom line. Ultimately, like I tell my real estate clients, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. You're going to pay. The high level of services that the city provides comes with a cost. In my estimation, our police and fire departments, compared to national averages for cities of 100,000 people, are understaffed. Those are problems that are addressed in this budget. We've got new police officers added to the roles. We've got, I think, a dozen new firemen that are going to be added to the roles, and those are vital government positions. They cover public safety, and ultimately, the city has been extremely responsible, in my estimation, with the funds that have been raised through property taxes. As the economy has been booming, they haven't taken the 1% or the 2% increases, and over time, you're going to have to pay, and eventually, today, that time has come. But if you compare our property tax rates to anywhere else in the Treasure Valley, and especially nationwide, you can see that we really do have a very low property tax burden that's easily accommodated, I think.
Love this question. As the only candidate that has attended the last 7 budget hearings, I've paid strict attention to our city's budget. 3 as a citizen and 4 as a city council member. When I was elected, there was a mindset that it was automatic that the city took the 3% unless proven otherwise. Now, we can talk up and down about taxes, but those are mine and your dollars, dollars that we work hard for. And I made a promise 4 years ago when I ran that I was going to be a pit bull when it came to the budget. I've said it once and I'll say it again, every dollar is important. So when you look at that 3%, that was a decision that I voted against. I didn't think that it was necessary and I didn't think it was warranted. You have to look at each budget year based on the needs of the city, where we are today and where we're going to the future. And what I can tell you here today is the same thing I told you 4 years ago. Every one of your dollars matters to me. They matter to me today, and they'll matter to me in the future.
You mentioned we were going to get to specifics. There have been a number of questions. I think there's some young people that have wrote some questions about bike lanes and protecting bicycles in the city. How do you feel that that is going in the city of Meridian, and what do you feel needs to be done in the future?
Goes back to public transit. And as we have grown and being a community again that's eclipsing 100,000 people, we've got to make it easier for people to get to point A to point B. In addition, with we're a community of young families. Not every family has 2, 3, 4 cars. Many families rely on pathways, sidewalks, bike lanes to get to and from school, to get to and from work, and to get to and from our great downtown. It boils back down to that first point that I talked about earlier, strong collaboration and good partnerships. Unfortunately, we have Kent Goldthorpe here from the Ada County Highway District here in the room. And I think building that strong relationship where the city is being proactive in our planning, both of the development community and the highway district, to ensure that you look at our map of pathways, we've got a lot of holes. And I'm one that has every year advocated that we spend more dollars on pathway connections, not less. I think that it's going to become more of a requirement as we grow into the future, and it's something I'll continue to advocate for.
Well, to answer the question specifically about bike lanes, I really have to come back to the overall impact to the city. Right now, there are some bike lanes, and I very rarely see commuter bicyclists in those bike lanes. Generally, people that commute to work with their bicycle prefer to be in the roadway for safety reasons. I am all for alternative solutions and things like road diets, because they've been proven to increase public safety, as well as give alternative avenues for pedestrians and bicyclists. But painting lines on a road doesn't necessarily guarantee safety, and that's until our community has a higher density of bicycle commuters. I don't really see the need for additional funds devoted to that.
As a civil engineer, I designed a number of highway and transit projects. You've probably all driven on roads and bridges that I designed many years ago. And many of those projects in recent years have included bike lanes. The challenge is we live in a very spread out city. That's typical of all cities in the American West. The cities have been built and developed in the age of the automobile. And the reality is, you know, it's simple physics. When you take a 2,500-pound automobile moving at 40 miles an hour and you put it against a 200-pound bicyclist and his bicycle, it's not there's no choice about who's going to win that contest. Bike lanes by themselves don't necessarily ensure the safety of the bicyclists, as was mentioned. Likewise, bike lanes have to go where the people want to go and where people can go in a reasonable time. Cities have the size and shape based upon transportation modes. Transit requires a population density to be economically viable, requires a density that we don't really have. So we need to be open to these things. I'm happy with developing additional bike lanes, but that's not really the solution for Meridian as a commuter option in a large way.
Back to finances, do you support, and this came online from a citizen, do you support bonds for public infrastructure, schools, roads, sidewalks, or libraries? Why, and if not, why not?
There are a lot of public infrastructure projects that can't get going if there isn't some additional funding mechanism. So bonds are appropriate for that situation. The question, though, is the burden that's being taken on, because all those bonds have to be repaid. So unless there is a viable mechanism to repay, and really the clear indication that the city will be able to pay without significantly raising taxes in the future, bonding and taking other indebtedness is, in a large extent, you know, kind of mortgaging your future. So the city has to be very careful about any of those types of financing options that will create a burden down the road, because that can cause more problems than it solves. So it's a matter of picking and choosing which projects are more important than others.
Well, on the subject of bonds, I think that they have as a financial instrument, there's a time and a place to use them. Unfortunately, when it comes to schools, I think the burden really goes back to the state, funding public education at a level that's sufficient. And really, the West Ada School District needs to have a leadership mindset of solving the problem and getting ahead of the curve instead of reactive policies, such as when schools get overcrowded by 30%, then they're going to build the school to be at maximum capacity the day they cut the ribbon and open the school. As far as libraries, that's something near and dear to my heart. I'd love to be a champion for libraries. The Meridian Library District operates independently right now, and last year the West Ada Recreation District and the library bonds specifically both had about 59% approval rating. Unfortunately, due to Idaho code, they need a supermajority of 67%. In my opinion, I think the voters of Meridian were defrauded, and it has made our city, it has lessened our appeal to inbound families, because those are great programs that need to be subsidized and supported by the city.
Just a point of clarification, it's our Idaho Constitution, and I hold true to our Constitution. A 2/3 majority is what the founders of our state thought was important. It's something I still support to this day. Now to the question at hand about municipal bonding. I can tell you right here, not now, not ever, will I as a city council member advocate that the city go into debt for any project that is an emergency needed. It pertains to libraries, school district. I'm proud to have voted for the bonds for our library. I'm proud to have voted for the bonds for our school district. It's important for our kids. It's important for our community. But libraries and school districts are out of the purview of the city. So that as your city council member, I can tell you again, and I'll repeat it, especially for those folks online. I love that there's people watching online. Not now, not ever will I vote for the city to go in debt unless it's a result of an emergency.
Lastly, I think it's only fair that I ask the candidates the question that we asked the candidates for the 4th seat, and that is, why do you want the citizens to know that you are the most qualified for this position?
Thanks, Mark. 4 years ago when I ran for office, I was criticized in one of the daily newspapers for loving our community too much. Can you believe that? Criticized for loving Meridian too much. You're here because you love Meridian too. This is the community that I've been proud to call home nearly my entire life since I was 4 years old. It's the community I'm proud to raise my boys in. I love this community. I cared about Meridian long before the political cycles, and I'll care about Meridian long after this election's over. I'm proud to have voted in our city elections. I'm proud to support candidates like Councilmember Zaremba, who's here, and Councilmember Byrd. I understand the issues because I've come from our community and I've heard from you. I believe in connecting with our constituency. I'm the only candidate that on my campaign materials includes my phone number, 208-695-4536. I want to hear from you. This isn't my seat. This is our seat. Somebody said the other day, how many bosses are we going to have at City Hall? And I said 100,000 because I work for you. I'm proud to do it, and I hope you'll hire me again for another 4 years. Thank you.
And just to clarify, if you pick up any of my literature, you'll see my phone number on there. It rings to this phone, and I've got about a dozen messages I need to get back to of potential supporters. Here's what I want you to know about me. One of the biggest things I took away from the Air Force was the concept of quality Air Force. It's something that the Air Force stole from IBM back in the 90s, and really, it's summed up in a mission statement. Quality Air Force is a leadership commitment and operating style that inspires trust, teamwork, and continuous improvement at all levels of the Air Force. And really, as a candidate, that's what I see my role as a city councilman being. Having a leadership commitment and operating style that encourages people to reach out and connect. As you know, each one of us, I think it's kind of silly that we run for specific seats when it's not a geographically divided city race. That's a topic for another day. But ultimately, everyone should feel comfortable reaching out or coming down to our beautiful city hall to chat with our elected officials.
I believe the best thing that I would bring to the city council is the ability to see all sides of issues, not just the side that maybe the city interests, but the population interest and the interests of all the different players involved, whether it's a developer, whether it's a business owner, what have you. From a legal side, from an infrastructure side, from a technical side, from a planning side. I understand all those different facets, and I can weigh the pros and cons of all the decisions that come in front of the city council. I have experience in city government as a planning and zoning commissioner, and I know how to look at things and recognize the key criteria that are used for deciding yay or nay, whether it's a budget issue, whether it's a planning issue, whether it's a city ordinance. these things are not just black and white in all cases. And I know how to look at all the different degrees of facts and considerations and make a wise judgment that'll be in the interests of the city, the interests of the people. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for City Council, Meridian seat number 6. I should remind you citizens that are here tonight, and you probably goes without saying, sitting on the City Council is considered a part-time job. But when you're giving out your phone number on the World Wide Web, I think you know that this $11,000 a year part-time job turns into a full-time job. They meet 4 times a month. And some of those meetings go, what, Tammy? 2, 3 hours, sometimes into the night. Yeah. So I can tell you, completely off the record, watching this, I'm blown away by the quality of the candidates you have in this great city. And I can speak for probably all of you when I say that I feel like your city, no matter what happens on Election Day, is in very, very good hands. And the one in the big office is here tonight. Mayor Tammy, can you come up and say a few words? And ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Mayor of Meridian, Tammy DeVeard.
Well, let's give Mark a show of our gratitude for doing this. I think that you're lucky that he didn't break out in song, because every event I'm at that he MCs, he sings. So he, after I say thank you, then I'll hand you. I want to thank the Meridian Youth Advisory Council. This is one of the first things that they have done. And this year, they just started up MIAC, and they pulled this together. To Jody, the advisor, will you please give them all a round of applause? I know, I especially appreciate them when they're going, what do I do when Councilman Borton doesn't shut up? I mean, I know. So I had to stand in, right? I would like to also thank Meridian High School for allowing us to use this space. There are tours afterwards. If you would like to see what they have done with this high school, you'll be blown away. I think it's something that we as a committee, as a community, and as parents, patrons, and community members should be proud of what they have done with one of our oldest schools in the district, installing pride back into the first high school in this community. So I hope will join us afterwards. Thank you to Mark, and thank you to the candidates. I think I echo what Mark has said. It was a great forum tonight. We learned a lot about the candidates, and it's not easy being a public servant and putting yourself out there in front of the public. So thank you to each of you for being willing to stand up, speak up, and stand on your principles and your passions for why you want to run. We appreciate that. City Council makes land use decisions. They set the budget, they set the policies. I was pleased to see the turnout tonight, and thank you to our citizens who took an evening to care about the future of our community. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn this over to Mark for a song.
No, Mayor, you're going to come up here with me. We're going to sing the Meridian song. Oh, Meridian. Meridian has, you know, Meridian has a city song, right? We don't? Okay. Well, I'll just leave it at that because I got sore pipes. But thanks again, you guys. This was great. I appreciate it.